Hello YouTube, my name is Monica Smith and I want to welcome you back to my channel, Creative Moments. But before we get started with today's reviews, I want you guys to look down below and hit that red subscribe button and that notification bell so that you will be notified each and every time I upload a video. Welcome back. Now let's get started on these heartwarming reviews. The first book that I'm going to talk about is The Necromancer's Bride. I had to read this one twice, and even after the second time of reading this book, it just did nothing for me. I mean, the writing was good. I can't take that from her. The storyline was original. I can't take that from her, but it was just a little too creepy for me. It starts off with Rona, who gets sick, and the necromancer comes in and he takes the sickness away from her and he marks her hand. Well, she goes down to the village and the village people kind of pick on her, push her around or whatever. So she doesn't feel loved or wanted. Well, soon after she gets into an altercation with one of the village girls, that person's family member gets sick, and then other kids are starting to get sick. So Rana decides to climb this mountain where the necromancer lives at, and she's going up there to ask him to help out the other villagers. So he's like, okay, I'm gonna help him out, but go ahead and go lay down, take a nap, or go to sleep, whatever. So she's like, okay. So she goes and she lays down and gets in the bed and goes to sleep. But then she has this weird dream. She's like laying in a field or something, and she got her legs gapped open, airing out her little ladylike parts and stuff. And as this air is blowing up and airing her out or whatever, she feels this finger coming up between her legs, and it's massaging her little lady, and then she's massaging her little lady. And then when she wakes up, she notices that the hand that's actually playing with her is a dead hand. So she, or it's in her dream that the hand is dead, I don't remember. But she gets up the next day and she's like, hey, are you going to help me go help these kids? But she feels like he knows what she did the night before, with the playing with herself thing. So he's like, yeah, we're going to help them, but it can only be on this certain day at this certain time because they got to be close to death. So while he's talking to her, he's making some type of green glob of stuff or whatever, and he puts it in a jar, puts it up on a shelf. Well, he leaves the laboratory and she's thinking that this thing that he created is the cure to help these other children out in her village. So she goes and she tries to grab this jar and steal it, but she ends up dropping it because he walks in and he surprises her. So when he walks in and surprises her, she drops it on the floor and she tries to run. She's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that, I'm sorry. And he stops her, and then this green glob comes across the floor. It goes up her legs, and she's like, please, 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 please don't hurt me. And it starts to turn into something and massages her insides or whatever. So she's getting penetrated by this green glob, and the necromancer's like, I'm doing this to help you, I like you, blah blah blah. And she's like, oh my god, you torture me, blah 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 blah. But she still stays with him. So further into this story, she finds out that he calls her his bride. He's in love with her, but he cannot sexually satisfy her because he's also dead. But he still holds up to his part of the bargain. He goes down there, he heals the children, he heals her sister who was also sick, and then he just tries to leave her because he's like, this is not going to work, I'm dead. And she runs after him and she's like, you know what, I love you regardless of what's going on, I'm your wife. And he's like, oh, I'm so happy we're going to get married. Or it's not like a typical marriage, I'm just going to put this ring on your finger bling, and we're married. And she's like, okay. So she takes him back, or he takes her back to the house in the mountain. She puts the hand that he marks on his face, and all of a sudden he turns human. His penis now works. They're having sex. She gets pregnant, and they go on to live a happy ever after life. So it's not a bad story. It just was not the story for this chick. But that book is called The Necromancer's Bride, and I give that maybe 3 stars. Well, I'll give it a positive 3 stars because it was original. Okay, so moving on. The next book I read was called Bewitching by Jill Burnett. 5 stars. 5 freaking stars. I love that book. It's a Scottish. I can't get that word out. Me and my messed up grammar. She's a witch, and in the beginning, she's trying to teleport somewhere, and she ends up bumping into the Duke of Belmore. Now he's like this strong, stoic type person, and he's trying to figure out where she came from and all this other stuff. He just found out that the woman that he was supposed to marry left him and married somebody else. So even though his feelings are a little hurt, he's not letting anybody in to see it. So while they're taking her in and putting her in a carriage, trying to clean this mess that she's made, she's making more of a mess because her magic is so crazy. It's all over the place. But during the time that they're doing this, he's telling her, hey, would you marry me? And she's like, no, yes, maybe. I'm a witch. And he's like, I don't care about all of that, I just want you to be my wife. So eventually they get married, and when they get married, he comes to her room, which I don't get about that time. The husband slept in one room, the wife slept in the other room, and they only slept together when they were being sexually intertwined with each other. That wouldn't work for me. But anyway, he comes over to her room, and he wants to consummate the marriage. He wants her to have children so that it can carry on his line. And she's like into it, but she still stops him. She's like, okay, for real, homeboy, I am a witch. I am a full-blown witch. And he's like, okay, you can be whatever you want to be, just spread your legs and give it to me. She's like, no, you don't get it. I'm a witch. And he's like, okay, show me what type of witch you're talking about. So she gets up and she does a little magic, and he sees that she's a witch. This pisses him off. So he just, I don't want to talk to you right now. And then he goes back to his room. He gets drunk or whatever, and he comes back to her the next day telling about, hey, I get the fact that you're a witch, but my family line has been, this for so long. We are noble people, and we can't have this coming down on our house, even though the witch trials are over or whatever the case may be. I just don't want this bad luck to be down on my house. So he tells her divorce is out of the option, and we're just gonna have to make the best of it. But what he's doing is he's hiding her from everybody. So she's in this castle by herself, and she's doing all this magic. She gets caught doing the magic, and then he gets this summons from the Prince of France, or the King of France, one of them, and they want him to bring his wife to meet him. So they take this trip to go there, but on the way there, they hit a snowstorm, and she uses her magic to try to shift them out of the area that the carriage broke down in, and she almost kills herself. She almost kills herself because she lands in a lake, and he saves her, and they find this little cottage, whatever. And during this time, him and her are together, and they're getting to know each other. They're getting to build that husband and wife relationship. And the only thing that he keeps asking her is, do not use magic. Don't do it. We can make this, don't do it. So they finally bond in a way, even though she gets caught using magic. They bond in a way, and after this snowstorm or whatever is over, they make their way to France. So when they get to France, again, he's trying to hide her from everybody, but when he does take her out, people are really drawn to her. She's like this really beautiful lady with this really good soul. And so she's trying to make her husband happy, and she goes out on the market to buy I don't want to say slaves, workers. She goes out to get workers because the workers that were over their home all got sick, so she needed to get more help in there. He's like, no, don't go, don't go, don't go, because he doesn't want people to see her without him, because he don't know if she's going to use magic or not. But she goes anyway, and when she goes out, she hires a Caribbean guy to be the cook, and she hires this older gentleman to be the butler, which he is probably as cute as she is in this story. So, long story short, they end up living happily ever after. He accepts her for who she is, with all her bad magic. They have children and all that good stuff. Bewitching is probably the cutest, funniest, most heartthrob story I have ever read. I really liked it. So, moving into one of the best series that I have read thus far for me. It's called the Fae Chronicles. I really, 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 really enjoyed the Fae Chronicles. It starts off with Talon Destiny, and it's a story about a witch from the guild and a dark Fae prince. Her name is Sin and his name is Ryder, and I am so in love with Ryder. But she has to, in the beginning, she is tasked with a job, and her job is to steal the crown of the dark Fae prince. So she grabs her team, they go in, and she's almost there to where the crown is, but she gets caught. Well, she finds out that it was a setup. Ryder, the dark Fae prince, is testing her to see if, she has the skills that he needs, because he's looking for a witch to impersonate his fiance so that she can help him find out who's trying to kill his fiance. So the relationship between Ryder and Cynthia is so drawing, so magnetic, so it's just, I love them. In the beginning, Ryder is like drawn to her sexually, and he has some feeling for her, but he's like another stoic type person. Everything is kind of like blank, but he is so masculine, so dominating. And Cynthia, on the other hand, is stubborn and cute and fun. But she has her issue with the Fae because she had watched them kill her parents when she was a little girl. So she's telling him, you know what, I'm not going to sleep with you. I don't care what you do. I am not going to sleep with you. And Ryder is like, I'm okay with that because I don't like to play with my food anyway. So as they're working this crime together, or these crimes, because witches and Fae are being killed, they get closer together. So Ryder decides that he wants to become more intimate with Cynthia. So he kind of like tricks her in a way to go to this club where they do this great hunt once a year. And it's something that's practiced on his planet. So what it is the women run and the men catch them. If they catch you, then you can give yourself to that Fae and be his for 24 hours. The thing about Fae is they feed off of humans' emotions because we're so filled of emotions. So when he catches her, he takes her back to Fairy, which is Ryder's home planet, and he totally just takes control of her. I mean, just really sexual. I mean, the sex scenes in this book are great. So after they leave Fairy, things start changing with Cynthia because she's not really a witch. They find out that she is also Fae. So she ends up mating with Ryder. She ends up having feelings for Ryder, but she will not let Ryder dominate her. So at the end of Fighting Destiny, her and Ryder are somewhat sort of together, but they're not really together because he won't give Cynthia what she wants most. So the next book in the Fae Chronicles was Talon Destiny. And I've read that book twice, and I'm kind of confused on the different books because I read them all so quickly that it's all kind of running together to me. But I want to say that Talon Destiny is where Adam, which is Cynthia's best friend, is found out to be Fae. He too was taken when he was a baby, and he grew up in the same guild as Cynthia. Matter of fact, it comes out that Cynthia, when she was at a harvest festival, and Adam was at this harvest festival, somehow or another, Cynthia, as a little girl, kidnapped him, shifted him into a church, I want to say it is, and that's how he ended up a part of the guild. And she ended up with her witch parents. They were witches. So her and Adam now find out that they are both Fae. He is dark Fae, and they're assuming that Sin is light Fae because the princess, or the hair of the light Fae, was missing, and they knew that the light Fae queen was promiscuous. So they took her in, and they thought that she was light Fae. Well, by her being the heir to light Fae, she was promised to the prince of dark Fae, or the heir of dark Fae, not the prince. So Ryder's the prince. Adam is now the heir of the dark Fae. So Cynthia and Adam have to become married. So in Cynthia's last night together with Ryder, he tells her that if it was anything else, if it was anybody else, I will fight for you, but I can't fight my brother, because Adam and Ryder are brothers. He's like, I can't fight my brother and take him from you, take you from him, because this is destiny. We have to do this for destiny, because Richton, which is the demon, I love him to death. Richton has this vision that, Adam and Cynthia are going to have this child together, and this child is going to save their world because their world is dying. So Ryder is trying to do what's right for his kingdom, his people. And Adam has some type of connection to Sin, and he feels like that they're supposed to be together anyway. So Cynthia wants to do right by the people now that she knows that she is Fae. She still has an issue with them because it was the Fae who killed her mother and her father, her witch mother and her witch father, who raised her, who were raising her. So she still has her issues with them, but she's starting to accept them as her people. So she goes to Fairy to marry Adam. And while she's there with Adam, there's this, right out on their wedding day, there's this explosion, and Cynthia is shifted out. And that's when they find out she's not the heir of the light Fae. She's actually the heir of the blood Fae. So she's shifted out, and her brother is like, you're my sister, and I've been following you around, I've been shielding you, all this other stuff against all the evil that's happening, and I'm sorry that this is about to happen to you. And I'm not going to say that her family doesn't love her, but they sacrificed her to the Horde King, which is the most evil of all the Fae. The Horde Fae is like pure evil. And they sacrificed her because the Horde King wanted the blood Fae's wife. And if he couldn't have her, he wanted their firstborn. So in order to protect Cynthia, they had her sent to Earth and had the witches raise her, and they marked her body with all these spells to keep them from finding her, to keep the Horde King from finding her. So when Ryder took her to Fairy for the hunt, he activated all of those symbols, which made her now visible to the Fae. So now that she's back, they have to give her to the Horde King. Now he's known for dismembering his concubines and beating on them and all type of stuff. He was just a horrible, horrible person. But it wasn't only to his wife and his concubines, but he was just as cruel to his children. So they're telling her, they're like, hey, I love you, and I know this is messed up what we're doing, but you are already promised to him in order to save your mother's life. So they hold her hostage somewhat, sort of, to keep her from sifting out. And they give her, before they give her to the Horde King, they gave her this weapon and said, hey, if you use this on him, this is going to kill him, and then you'll be free. You won't have to deal with the Horde King. And somehow or another, she goes to sleep and she's talking to Ryder, and she's telling Ryder all of this. And he's like, that's suicide, Sin. Don't do it. Don't try to kill the Horde King. And she's like, you know, I have to do what I have to do, blah, blah, blah. But when the Horde King comes to claim his possession, she gets rid of the weapon. So that was Talon Destiny. So now book 3 of the Fae Chronicles is Escaping Destiny. And yes, it's Escaping Destiny. And in this one, Cynthia has been given to the Horde King. They take her back to his castle, and they kind of like tie her up, like chain her up and stuff. And she's, I believe, I want to say, she may not have been blindfolded. I want to say she was, but she may not have been. But he comes in and he's trying to dominate her. He's trying to tell her, you know, if you don't do what I want you to do, you know what's going to happen. And she's like, yes, you're going to take my breath away. So during this time of him trying to dominate her, she lets it spill, I'm in love with Ryder. So he finally lets her in on this big secret. The Horde King is now Ryder. And it happens because Ryder had killed his father, who was the Horde King. When he killed his father, his uncle, who is the Dork King of the Dork Fae King, took Ryder in as his own son to shield him from anything that happens. So he grew up as the Dork Prince, but now that he's trying to pull the kingdom together, he's stepping up to the throne, and he became the Horde King. Well, while he's explaining all of this to Cynthia, he also tells her, you're pregnant and it's my baby. So of course they're all happy and stuff, and you know, she has him, but she still doesn't have him because there's another woman that when Ryder was younger, he signed a contract saying that he will marry this princess from somewhere else. Now she comes into the picture to claim her husband, or her father brings her into the picture to claim someone else. And this princess is tied to a woman in the first book. Her name is Claire. That's her half sister. Claire wants Cynthia out the way so she can become Ryder's concubine, because the concubines, I believe, have more power than the wives. So she comes into play, and Ryder is trying to explain to Cynthia, you know, even though I'm going to marry her, the only person I'm going to share my bed is with you. Yeah, I'm going to have to consummate this marriage, but after that, I'm going to send her to the pavilion where all these other whores are, and she's going to still reign as queen and as my wife, but it's going to be you that's going to be in my bed. And Cynthia's like, homie, no. If I can't be your one and your only, I'm not going to be crap. No. So he's trying to figure out how to handle this dilemma, because he knows that he cannot let go of Cynthia because he's so drawn to her. His beast, his other person that lives in his body, his beast is drawn to her, and they don't want to lose her, but he's trying to make the people happy. So he's kind of like fighting with himself to which way is right. But what he ends up trying to do is find a loophole to get himself out of the contract so that he doesn't have to marry this other princess, and that he can move on with his life with Cynthia. So that was book 3, Escaping Destiny. And I'm so sorry, I have to look at my notes because, like I said, I read these books all back to back. So book 1 is a 5-star, book 2 is a 5-star, book 3 is a 5-star, and we get ready to move into book 4. So now on to book number 4, which is Seducing Destiny. I don't know why I'm having problems talking today. In Seducing Destiny, Sin is pregnant and she is with Ryder. They are a couple. They are not married still, but Sin finds out that her mother, who is the blood fae, is not her mother. Actually, her mother is Danu, who is a goddess. And what Danu did is she took one of her own eggs and planted it into the blood fae queen and let the husband fertilize it, and therefore we have Cynthia. So she finds out this, but she hasn't told Ryder that her mother is Danu, which is the creator of fairy, the world that Ryder is from. And he finds out because the mages come into their castle to attack Cynthia, and during this attack they kind of like put up this force field and they block Ryder them from getting to her. So she has to fight them, and they have like this telepathic thing going on. So she's calling for her mother to help her. She's like, Danu, get your ass in here right now. Help me. I need you. So even though she's saying it in her mind, her link is open to all of the elite guards and Ryder, so they all hear her. So he gets a little bit upset with her after he finds out that she's the daughter of a goddess. He's like, you know, you lied to me. And she's like, I didn't lie to you about who my mother was. I just didn't tell you that it wasn't, you know, the blood queen, the blood fae queen. So they get into a little spit spat argument, and she tries to leave him. He goes and finds her, and they kind of somewhat make up. Well, something happens again where Cynthia is taken, and it's her brother Claire sets Cynthia up, and her brother gets his hands onto Cynthia, and he takes her to somewhere else, and Ryder them are trying to get to her, but they don't know that Claire is in on it. So they're trying to get to Cynthia to save her, but her brother, oh nasty person, is trying to rape her. And during this time that he's trying to rape her, she's going into labor, and like the other people that's around her brother, they're like, hey dude, this ain't right. This is your sister. How can you rape your sister? And he's like, you know, screw her. Because of her, my life is messed up and all this other stuff. So she goes into labor, and then I think they're fighting or something, but by the time that Ryder them find her and get her back to Fairy, and they're managed to kill a lot of people, but they still haven't killed her brother that's causing so much drama. Richton has to save the babies. Matter of fact, I believe Sin tells them, whatever you do, you save my babies. And so it comes down to either saving Cynthia's life or saving the baby's life. And Richton did what Cynthia wanted him to do. He cuts her stomach open and he saved the kids. He's like, okay, Ryder, you have one son. Ryder, you have two sons. But then they get that surprise factor. He's like, oh my God, she gave you a daughter. But Ryder he's hurt because this was his soulmate. This is the only person that he truly loved. And so he takes his kids, and they're trying to take care of the kids and stuff, but he really misses Cynthia. But Danu doesn't let Cynthia die. She lets that old body die, but she brings Cynthia back as something else. And I have to go back and read how it happens, but she brings Cynthia back, and Cynthia goes to Ryder, and she's like, hey baby, I'm here. I got you. I love you, and all this other stuff. At first he's kind of skeptical about it. He's like, you're not my Cynthia. But then he figures out that is his Cynthia. And now, because he's lost her, he knows what it's like to lose her. He wants to get married to her. But Cynthia's like, I don't want to marry you like this. I love you, but I don't want to marry you like this. You only want to marry me because you've lost me. She's like, I want you to marry me because you love me. So she turns him down in the marriage. There's a little bit more that goes on in this book, and again, 5 out of 5. But the next book, I believe, is Unraveling Destiny, which I read it, but I'm going to reread it because I found out some other stuff that needs to happen first before I read Unraveling Destiny, so that it will make sense to me. And that's coming up next. To wrap up this video, before I read books 5, which is Unraveling Destiny, 6, which I believe is called Embracing Destiny, and 7, which is Crowning Destiny, there are some other books that need to be read, because you're supposed to stop at book 4 of the Fae Chronicles and move into another series and read that series first, then come read a couple of books of that series, then come back to book 5 of Fae Chronicles, then go to another series, read that series, and then come back to books 6 and 7 of Fae Chronicles. So I'm not going to be able to get to those right now because I already have my December books picked out. So I will probably go back to the Fae Chronicles in January. But like I always say, if you have any questions and comments, please hit me up down below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't you dare forget to subscribe, and don't you dare forget to hit that notification bell so that you will be notified each and every time I upload a video. Until next time, you have a blessed day.